went through some choice words to try and get health disparities, cultural competencies on the agenda for our profession. And it wasn't an easy task because a lot of the people thought that they would never be working. When they think health disparities, what do you think they're thinking about? Anybody? Come on now. If I said we were going to talk about health disparities today, what would come to your mind? Be honest. Healthcare.
Money to go to the doctor.
Race. When we talk about health disparities, people thought minorities. I'm going to be working with minorities. I'm going to be running my business. I'm going to be doing cultural internships abroad and everything. But do you know, those are the people we're going to be working with? Even if you're a clinical dietitian, there will be people in your hospital who will be suffering because of health disparities. We talked about cultural competence. I'm so delighted that Anna, and I'm not going to even try to pronounce her name, and I'm going to apologize up front, I won't laugh. When we talk about cultural competence, people, I used to talk about health literacy before it became a word. We called it working with low literacy audiences, and now we say health literacy. People say, oh, one woman said, I work with audiences at, you get it right, it's a fancy hospital in Boston, and there are only wealthy people who come, and I thought, there are wealthy people who can't read. I knew a couple of them because I was with the Law About Literacy Council there in Montgomery. You will run into all kinds of people as you pursue your profession. And let me tell you why you ought to get involved in public policy, and you ought to be an advocate for people who are hungry. I just want to share something with you, and I hope Elizabeth will come up and make sure I don't forget. I did it right. There was a study that was released just recently by Generations United, and I participated in the, I participated in this, the release of the study at the National Press Conference in Washington, D.C. I thought I died and gone to heaven. You never know where you're going to be as a dietitian. You need to accept people for who they are and learn as much about other people as you can. I came from a farming town in North Louisiana, a family of 11. My mother raised 11 of us, and by all statistical standards and all that stuff that people publish in these journals, I wasn't supposed to be anything or anybody. And then I married a man from a divorced family. I was from a divorced family, and I married a man from a divorced family. So a lot of what you read in the journals, you need to take it with a grain of salt and look at what's going on in the evidence analysis library at the academy, so you'll know how to look critically at publications, at articles that are published. I participated in this national press conference where the Generations United released this study that was done on hunger. Do you know there had not been a general study that was done nationwide on hunger since Dr. Arnold Schaefer did it back in 1964 through, and it was published in 1970. It was called the 10-State Nutrition Survey. You need to look at that if you want to see what hunger looked like in America, and we're right back there now. Don't fool yourself. We don't have to go to Haiti or any other place, South Africa, to notice hunger. We could probably walk around this campus about 3-4 blocks, and we probably could find some pockets, maybe not in Forest Hills, but we could find some hunger. Okay, we need to address the twin issue of hunger and poor nutrition. People see people who are overweight, and they automatically assume they are overfed. They may be eating the wrong thing and still hungry. So we need to look at it. It's not a new paradigm, but we need to become aware of the fact that Americans, we are unaware, as dietitians and nutritionists, of the full extent of the problem, that 1 in 6 Americans is at risk of hunger. Children and older adults are uniquely affected. If you have a mother, grandmother, aunt, you need to pay attention to these kinds of things. Almost 16 million children, or 1 in 5 in the United States, live in households where they lack consistent access to enough nutritious foods necessary for healthy life. Now, because we're pushed for time, I'm going to leave this PowerPoint presentation with Dr. White, and you can download it. I'm sure it'll be available for you to download. Jonas shaking her head, because I want to just have a conversation with you. I think that we don't have enough fierce conversations about what's happening in this country and what our role can and should be in this area of hunger. Do you know that a lot of people are hungry because they're unemployed? And many of them have degrees. Many of them look like you and me. And they're hungry. They're unemployed. They're hungry. Many people are dealing with a social justice issue. Or should we say social injustice? When there's an issue of social injustice, think about the number of people in prison. And some of us are affected by that. And our drug laws have wreaked havoc and increased our prison population, and especially among the African American population, black males. And when they come out of prison, do you know that they can't get a job? Many of them struggle. They can't apply, they can't get food stamps. They can't get public housing. That contributes to hunger. They can't even stay with their relatives who may live in public housing. I didn't realize they couldn't get food stamps. That contributes, okay? I see. You're wondering, is that right? Social justice. If dietetics is your profession, then public policy ought to be your business, because we need to get active. I think we sit on the sideline because there's such a desire. We laughed yesterday. I'm reading this book called The Miseducation of Negroes. It was written in 1917 by Carter G. Woodson. We laughed yesterday. We need to write a book about miseducation of dietitians. I'm not sure if that would be very popular. I'd probably get kicked out of the academy, and I'd never make the ballot again. Oh, okay, I'll go. You don't have to kick me out. Just tell me you don't want me, and I'll go anyway. And I know you don't believe that. We were taught to be competitive. I knew more about gluconeogenesis and glycolysis and monophosphate shunt and the Krebs cycle. I knew all of that stuff. But then I taught in the hospital. I was a hospital dietitian, therapeutic they called us then. I counseled my last patient in a hospital in St. Louis, Missouri. I interned at St. Louis University. And I did all the things that I was taught. And I taught that man so well, and he was so nice. You're going to learn something about listening today, and that's going to be important for public policy and for your role as an advocate for those people you're going to run into all of your life as a dietitian. He was real nice. He bowed, and he was polite. And when I finished my diet instruction, he said, "Rolling water making this real good. Know all that stuff." He said, "But did you know I'm homeless?" That was my first real education. And you don't say those universities Jesuit, and of course I was well taught. I turned in my letter of resignation. I gave them my 2-week notice. And I just went home and sat. I had to do some reflection. I went home and sat. And someone came to me and said, "I heard you are a dietitian who thinks differently." And I ran it down. I don't want to work anymore in those places. You got to do what they say do because they've been doing it that way for the last 100 years. And I'm finished with that. And she looked at me and she said, "You're the person I'm looking for." She had cancer. She was dying. I didn't know that. She didn't tell me that. She was from somewhere in Kentucky. I looked at her and I judged her. Because it looked like she had on a wig that she had gotten off the floor, and she had on some galoshes. You all wear them now. They're the fancy little rain boots, what do you call them? I don't know what you call them now, but they were galoshes when I was growing up. And I looked at her and I thought, "Oh, God, I hope she doesn't sit by me." But then we were at a district meeting, and she told me, "You're the person I'm looking for." And I thought, "Oh, what does she want me for?" She wanted me to go to East St. Louis, Illinois, and work as a community nutritionist. I looked at her and I judged her based on her looks. Her name was Dr. Judith Judd. She had graduated from Texas Women's College, and I've only seen her one time in my life. She sold me. So when I went to East St. Louis, Illinois, to interview for the job, the man told me, "I'm already hiring you because Judy Judd said you were the person for this job." And I thought, I didn't even talk to her 10, 15 minutes. She was dying from cancer. I didn't know this. After he hired me and gave me a nice salary, he said, I said, "Oh, what was that lady's name? I want to thank her. He said, oh, we funeralized her last week. Okay. That was my first real education. I worked in East St. Louis for 1 year. It was the best experience I've ever had, the best boss I've ever had, and I worked in an academic unit. I'm a full professor in nutrition and food science. He had a third grade education. When he held office staff, and I want you young people to listen to this, and I'm going to stop so Dr. Peterson can get started. He held staff meeting, and I was a whiner because I was so well educated, and I want him to know that I can't. These women are welfare women. All they want to do is for me to take them to the social worker, get them some food stamps, and help them with their children. I had to do all of that before I could even teach them about nutrition. And they had assigned me 33 women who were welfare mothers. And I had to work with them. And then I had to teach them nutrition. But I had to teach them how to work, how to get up and get to the job on time. I'm a stickler for time because I wanted them to understand how important it is to arrive on time, to do what you say you're going to do and to follow through. His name was Will McCoy. They tell me he just died last year. When he held staff conference, I was scared to death. His idea was, you're in this job. You're the head of this department. I expect you to go do the job. And he spoke with broken English. Did your job. You do the job. And if you have a problem, just let me know. He held staff meeting with a magnum on his desk and a Doberman Pinscher next to his desk. Now, what did that do with my master's degree from St. Louis University and my RD status? Nothing. I was scared to death. But I knew he placed a lot of confidence in me, and this woman who died placed a lot of confidence in me. She thought I could relate to the audience and I could help them. So I'm going to say to you again today, and I'm going to be around until noon. You need to be passionate. The new theme is, if dietetics is your profession, then public policy ought to be your passion. I said politics ought to be your passion. Someone from this university, a young lady who was an IT intern, and I have problems with names, approached Dr. Davis, Dan K. Davis, your house member. Camilla with dreads, and talked to him about there ought to be a registered dietitian in every school. And do you know Dr. Davis, and he has a doctorate degree in health administration. Dr. Davis wrote a bill, sponsored a bill in Congress because some of the dietetic interns from Dominican University had enough nerve to ask him, or to tell him that every school needs an RD. Policy, public policy ought to be business. I want to thank you all so much for having me come to speak to you. You all have a very visionary person, Dr. White, and we have had a great relationship. I second ISFE, passed the exam. Just got a note from her last night. Again, I didn't need it until this morning. Robbins from Washington State. Our first ISFE passed the exam in March. She almost knocked the top off of that exam. She made 34 out of 36. And that was proof positive when we were on the board of directors, and I kept saying, we need an alternative pathway. Oh, they're going to bring the standards down. Oh, they're going to dumb down the profession. Get out there. Public policy ought to be your business. Thank you so much.
Next we have Dr. Joyce Peterson from the Southern University of the Caribbean.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Dr. White. My talk to you this morning is very different, very, very different, and it's just going to give you the title right back. Everybody is different. And how many of you like to eat? So when I was growing up, my mother said the two professions that you need to go into be the food business and you have to wear clothes. It's either the food or the clothing business. And by the way, that was part of her background, that she had a little small business where she shared food with others in the community, and she also had a boutique. So she was sewing and preparing food. But, you know, you never know where you would end up as you start off in life. You know, I had some notes I wrote down, and I'm not saying anything about what's on that piece of paper. So you know how it is when you get up front and others individuals are all looking at you and you're a little bit nervous. But I'll just relax and I'll share with you what I'm all about. Food, glorious food. Growing up on an island 3 miles from South America, I was a very different child. And many of you who have children will realize that there's always one, but if you only have one, it might be that one, that has a lot of different kinds of ideas. And I was one of those. So I would always tell my mother, why do we have to do it this way? Why can't we do it another way? On the food cycle here that you have, eating on your plate, I wanted to bring that out to you. Our government is now saying that we should eat on that plate. And my thing about eating on the plate, I loved everything else on the plate except the protein foods. And the protein foods most of us were eating on that island was meat. And so I said, Mom, I don't really want to eat that. And well, why don't you want to eat meat? You want to live and be healthy. No, I don't want to eat that. Those are my friends because we were on a farm and we had a lot of animals that I played with, the goats and the chickens. And I have a picture with me holding a beautiful little chicken and hugging my little chicken. And that's the thing, I know that that chicken was on the table and we were having that for lunch. So I kind of had these kinds of feelings about animals that they should not be eaten. So I started going back in the Bible. I went to all Catholic girls' high school, very beautiful in Trinidad, called Providence Girls' High School. And so the nuns would all talk to me, and I always wanted to be a nun and those kinds of things. My mother would come and say, "You always have something different on your plate." But my mother watched me and noticed that there was something different about me. And so as I was growing up, I said, there has to be another way of eating. So as we look at the foods that we eat, and we are dietitians, those 6 nutrients. Now, what is the most important food, do you think? You can think about it, and then when you think about it and think about it, it basically comes down to H2O. Water is the most important food. You agree? Yes. We can't live without it. So, my sharing with you is that nutrition equals life. And so, as I was reading the good book, I saw right in the beginning of that book, Genesis 1:29, Genesis 1:27, 28, 29. It said fruits, nuts, and grains. Fruits, nuts, and grains ought to be our diet. You ever heard about the original diet? That is the original diet. When God made man, and then when he made man, he made a diet for them. Fruits, nuts, grains, and vegetables. So folks, I took that in really personally as a child and kept on going that road, and that has been my journey. It's been over 40, 50 years, 60 years, and plus. And that has continually been my journey. So just to give you that as a bit of a background, I decided that, if Genesis 1:29 is right, I need to talk to people about that. And so my mom said, well, who's going to listen to you about eating foods without meat? And I said, there's somebody out there that might be. And so I met a friend, and she was about 8 years old. I was 8 years old at that time, and we were both talking together. And I said, I don't eat meat. And my mom said, I'm going to die. My dad, they all get on me about it. And so she says, well, I don't eat meat either. And I said, well, you don't eat meat either, and you look fine? She says, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. I said, Seventh-day Adventist, what is that? And so she said, we don't eat meat, part of our cultural and spiritual experience. So of course, I ran home and I told my mother, I'm not going to be taking meat, I'm going to become a Seventh-day Adventist. She said, not in my home, you won't. And so I said, okay, but within my heart, I kept on that desire of not eating meat. So they would give it to me, put it on the plate, I would put it in my mouth, and I'm sure some of you have children like that, because in Maryland, where I do a lot of private practice, the years have gone by, I had many mothers who came to me with that same little story, the child doesn't want to eat meat. And so I would take it out of my mouth, put it in a little thing, and throw it outside so the dog will enjoy that. And so it became part of what I realized. I said, I have to follow this dream. And my talk this morning is follow your heart. So I am following my heart from that point on, and I kept on going with this whole idea. So I came up to America. I decided that I wanted to become a dietitian. And since I'm not going to eat this meat, I better find out exactly how it should work. And of course, that's a very long time ago, and many people thought that that type of diet was really a bad type of thing. Now, of course, it's accepted, and we enjoy these really healthy foods that can contribute good life to us. Because remember, nutrition equals life. Nutrition equals life. If we don't eat properly, what's going to happen to us? Eventually, we will get ill health and pass off the scene. Now, we're going to pass off the scene either way, anyway, but you want to pass off the scene in a really good experience of the journey of your life, of what you can contribute. So, young ladies and gentlemen, as you're out in the audience, think of what's in your heart and follow that dream that you may have. Because it has taken me to many heights and many places. So as I came to America to get my fame and fortune, that's what I told my mom. And she says, I know I've become a vegetarian, right? So within a year or so, I followed this particular diet pattern even more strongly, got into school, New York Institute of Dietetics, got my background and kept on moving on. And I still followed that desire within my heart. And there was a school in Huntsville, Alabama. And see, Dr. Creighton and I didn't realize we have so much in common in that I went to school there. It's a private school, and they do help to teach about vegetarianism and healthy eating. And so I went there with an associate degree in dietetics. It's a private school, and I wanted to become a speaker or a preacher because I wanted to tell everybody about the world. As I said, everybody's different, so I am different. And first time I walked in to get my papers, for registration, and you all know all about that, the teacher in the nutrition department says, what do you want to be? A preacher to preach about God and Jesus, and what is this? And you have 3.9 in dietetics from this institute, a two-year program in the Institute of Nutrition and Dietetics. She says, I need to see you tomorrow morning in the foods lab, and you are now my lab instructor. And so I ended up joining in that department, sort of like senior, taking courses in general education, general requirements. And I graduated. I still took that religion degree, and I used to preach with many other young men. But she said, you can preach health. Health is the thing that you can preach because people need healing. And food can be the thing that will heal you. And so I said, okay. So she would have many phone calls asking her to come and speak to different organizations. She's a doctor, Dr. Maxine Taylor. She's now at Loma Linda University. And she would say, yes, I will be there at that particular presentation. And so she would come to me in the lab and said, okay, Joy, you have a lecture that's at such and such a place. That's my name for Joy for short. And so I said, I do. And so I kept on speaking in all of these different background places, different areas that she would tell me to go. And it turned out that I began to really feel a little bit stronger about myself and about my dream. And I decided when I graduated from school, from Oakwood University, I would go on and do a master's in public health. So as I said, keep that track, follow that track. There's something called a profile. Get your profile together. Realize within yourself, this is really what I want to do. So then you don't waste a lot of time, going into ditches and falling into different avenues and places that you don't want to be, because then you can then be much more effective. So now we teach a course in Trinidad on the same concept of Introduction to Professional Dietetics. But as I'm wrapping up, I have a couple more minutes just to share with you how that whole cycle, it becomes a cycle in our life. So now what has happened is that I got a call in the year 2007 after I did my master's and my doctorate in public health at Loma Linda University. I got a call from the president of the University of the Southern Caribbean, and basically stating, I understand that you don't mind coming to Trinidad. You're a Trinidadian. I said, yes. You don't mind coming back to help us start a program. I said, what kind of program? They said, nutrition and dietetics. So I said, dang, the light went on. Well, I wanted to do that 40-something years ago, and did not have that opportunity to do so. So I said, okay, I will go, I will follow the call, because remember, my thing is following my heart, and that road that you go on. And so I told my husband, who's just a really beautiful person, he seems to understand me in that word, whatever I say. He said, okay, honey, if that's what you want to do. He's a physician, by the way. And he says, let's go on down. So we decided to take a break for the past 4 or 5 years as missionaries on the island of Trinidad and Tobago to help them start a School of Allied Health at that university, and then the Nutrition and Dietetic program. So I just want to say that that has been a real meaningful experience to me. And so whenever I go back, my husband tells individuals when I talk, she's from this island, she's a Trinidadian. Because for me, it was like I left there and all of that lifestyle back there. I didn't want all the carnival and all the parties and all those things. I had put that aside and I did not want to associate myself back there. But God said you need to go back and do for others what you are not able to get done for yourself. And so it's about, giving up of self and moving on. So it's a courageous experience. I'm enjoying it, and I'm ready to come back because I do love America. So thank you so much, and God bless you. Hallelujah.
And now I'd like to bring forth Anita Rosari. She's going to talk a little bit about the need for cultural competency and understanding in clinical diagnosis.
Before I translate for Anna, I want to thank Anna for inviting me and for the staff here at the university to accept my presence here. I've known Anna for 8-9 years. I visited Mexico a few times, even spent time at the home of Anna's parents. So I think I have a very well acquaintance with Anna, and I'm glad to be here.
Hello, hola, ¿cómo están? Mi nombre es Ana Irizarry, and before I start, let me introduce my small family, my diverse family. This is my husband, Daniel, and he's from Puerto Rico. And this is my father in the United States. He's from the Netherlands. And this is what exactly I want to talk this morning about diversity, how important it is. As I was working with Dr. Elecom, he's a dietitian too, he's a neuropsychologist too. I was so impressed how he was talking to diverse people from different cultures and different ages. And I really like that. That's why I thought it was important for me to have him here, because he's the one who put me in that passion of talking with diverse community. Here I am. Benito Juárez, Benito Juárez, presidente de México en 1861 a 1872, y hoy conocido como el Benemérito de las Américas, dijo la famosa frase: entre los individuos como entre las naciones, el respeto al derecho ajeno es la paz.
Benito Juárez, who was president of Mexico in 1861, and is known today as Benemérito de las Américas for his famous quotation, between individuals as well as between nations, respect for the right of others means peace.
I'm going to ask if you Esta es una frase sencilla pero llena de sabiduría. El respeto al derecho implica tolerancia por parte del resto. Significa valorar a los demás y acatar su autoridad y considerar su dignidad. El respeto al derecho ajeno es la esencia de las relaciones humanas en la vida de la comunidad y de cualquier relación interpersonal.
This phrase contains great wisdom. Respect for the rights of others implies respect for tolerance for others. It means to value others, respect their authority, and to be considerate of their dignity. Respect for the right of others is the essence of human relationships, communities, and other types of interpersonal relationships.
El respeto al derecho ajeno permite la aceptación y la comprensión de las limitaciones ajenas y el reconocimiento de las virtudes de los demás. Evita las ofensas y no permite imponer criterios. El respeto conoce la autonomía de cada ser humano y acepta el derecho de ser diferente.
Respect for the rights of others allows for the acceptance and understanding of the limitations and appreciation for the virtues of others. It avoids offending others and does not allow room for inappropriate judgment. Respect recognizes and accepts the right to be different.
Todos sentimos el derecho de ser respetados por los demás en nuestro modo de ser, nuestro modo de actuar, nuestro modo de pensar, y eso exige de nosotros el deber de respetar a todas las personas y a todos sus entornos.
We all expect that others will respect our way of living and the way we express ourselves. Therefore, it is our duty to respect others and their way of life.
Como dietistas, debemos entender este concepto como parte de nuestra formación personal y profesional y respetar el valor de la individualidad de nuestros pacientes. Compartir las mejores ideas, conceptos de la terapia nutricional sin violar la diversidad cultural de los pacientes. Y entiéndase por cultural todo lo que le rodea al individuo, la manera de vivir, la manera de pensar, la nacionalidad, su religión, su edad, su estado socioeconómico, entre otros.
As dietitians, we should make this concept part of our professional development and respect the uniqueness of our patients. We should share the best ideas and concepts of medical nutrition therapy without being insensitive to the diverse culture of our patients. We should understand the cultural nuances of each individual's lifestyle, their way of living, their thinking style, their nationality, religion, age, socioeconomic status, among others.
If someone can pass Tenemos aquí una diversidad de alimentos. El tamal, la pizza, los lácteos, la prata, el cacti, I don't know if I'm pronouncing correctly. Tienen varias cosas en común. Tienen exceso de carbohydrate intake, I don't know how to say it in Spanish, power intake, altos en grasas, las porciones son grandes, etc. Podríamos crear un perfecto key statement. Podríamos escribir una nota extraordinaria en nuestro assessment form. Can't say it in Spanish. Pero si no conocemos acerca de las personas que comen estos alimentos, así como su entorno cultural, su religión y su nacionalidad en general, de nada nos sirve un perfecto key statement.
On a practical level, we can look at these food items. Tamales, pizzas, lattes, I'm not correctly, pats, it's a Polish dish. Prata, all have many things in common. They are processed carbohydrates, high in fat, and tend to come in large portions. We could create a perfect test or problem physiology signs and symptoms state. Excessive carbohydrate intake, excessive fat intake. We could write an extraordinary note in our assessment form, but we are not familiar, but if we're not familiar with the person who eats these foods, their religion, their nationality, age, culture in general, the best statement would have little or no value.
No tendremos un buen resultado. De nada nos sirve dictar al paciente una medical nutrition therapy que no nos siga protocolos o estándares, sin respetar la individualidad y la forma de pensar y de creer del paciente.
the results that we get would not be satisfactory. There is no value in educating a patient using the standard MMT if we're not mindful of the unique way of lifestyle and thinking of our patients.
Los resultados serán siendo negativos y las enfermedades continuarán teniendo la misma incidencia y aún más elevado si no cambiamos esta forma de consultar a nuestros diversos pacientes.
Results will continue to be unsatisfactory, and disease markers will continue to be the same or may even increase if we do not change our way of counseling our patients with different forms of diversity.
Esta mañana les quiero invitar a que cada día de nuestra vida tomemos conciencia en cuanto a cómo debemos mejorar la forma de ayudar a nuestra comunidad, a nuestros pacientes. Que nos eduquemos acerca de esta gran diversidad de individuos y entornos y que respetemos la individualidad y su diversidad.
I want to encourage you this morning to live each day with a consciousness of how we can better help our community and our patients. We should also attempt to educate ourselves about the diversity of all individuals with whom we come in contact.
Así también es importante dar la oportunidad a todas aquellas dietistas que con su diversidad de cultura propia y de conocimiento formen parte también del mejoramiento de la salud comunitaria.
It is also important to give dietitians of diverse cultural backgrounds an opportunity to take part in improving our community health.
And I want to say this experience in English, this briefly. When I came here I graduated as a licensed dietitian, a registered dietitian in Mexico 15 years ago. I was struggling when I came here to the United States. And I was looking and knocking doors to different universities. They really didn't appreciate my education or my experience. This is what I thought. And they were trying to evaluate my degree and everything, but they wanted me to repeat all my career. So I was sad, and I started going around, and I was frustrated. Until one day I went to, in this case, Dominican University, and I met Dr. Vito. And I always want to say this, but she's outside, but thank God to meet Dr. Vito and also Dr. White, because they changed my life completely. Dr. Vito asked me this very interesting question. Does Mexican people have an extra bone in their body? Why do you want to repeat, what they want you to repeat anatomy? And the second question was, does Mexican people use Maya numbers? Why they want you to study again mathematics? And I'm never going to forget those questions. Those questions, the answer opened my experience here in the United States. And now it can be one of the diverse dietitians. But as I talk and I experience all these things, I share with my students about my community, about other nationalities, and I think and I'm sure that they can see the difference now when they assess people. And the last thing you have, and I want to share this phrase, how important it is to be educated. Libre y para mí sagrado es el derecho de pensar. La educación es fundamental para la felicidad social. Es el principio en el que descansa la libertad y el engrandecimiento de los pueblos. Benito Juárez.
To be free is the right mindset. Education is the key to social happiness. It is the principle on which freedom and greatness of nations rest. Benito Juárez.
Okay, now we're going to move into our main speaker and main speaker workshop. And I asked this morning Yuka Asada to come and introduce our speaker. Yuka is a PhD student. She's also an artist from Canada, but she's a PhD student in public health at the University of Illinois. She was one of the originators at a conference called Critical Dietetics, and which is the journal that Dr. Gingras is going to is the editor of, and she's going to introduce a little bit about critical dietetics, and then Dr. Gingras will give our talk.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So I'd like to just say a few brief words about critical dietetics. I was in the right place at the right time at Ryerson University and was able to be involved. It's an international movement that started in 2009. And I think the most question I get is the critical part. It doesn't mean that we sit around and criticize dietetics and nutrition. Instead, the critical refers to using critical social theory as a framework to look at, to ask questions about how we teach nutrition, how we are taught nutrition and dietetics, how we practice, and how we do research. And it gives us a space to create dialogue around these questions in a transdisciplinary way, in a reflexive way, an open way, and with a focus on social justice. We heard from Dr. Creighton about social justice, and also from Dr. Peterson the question, why do we do it this way? Why can't we do it another way? So that's all I'm going to say. If this has sparked your interest in any way, I invite you to go to the website. It's www.criticaldietetics.org. On there is a link to the journal Critical Dietetics. It's open access, it's free to the public. And there will also be a Critical Dietetics conference this year in Nova Scotia, Canada. And next year in 2014, it will be right here at Dominican University in August 2014. So next I'd love to, I'm very honored to introduce Dr. Gingras. She's an associate professor in the School of Nutrition at Ryerson University. Her research involves theoretical and experiential explorations of critical dietetics epistemology, knowing how knowing in dietetics is defined and positioned. She has a particular interest in how dietetic students and professional subjectivities are constituted by power and discourse to inform advocacy, policy, and pedagogy. Her research engages feminist autoethnographic, narrative, and arts-informed methods as a means for situated and particular understandings of dietetic theory, education, and practice. In addition to her book, which is called Longing for Recognition, The Joys, Complexities, and Contradictions of Practicing Dietetics, she has co-authored chapters in Critical Perspectives in Food Studies, Debating Obesity, The Fat Studies Reader, Historical and Critical Perspectives of Obesity in Canada, and Teaching as Scholarship. Recent journal articles appear in Transformative Dialogues, the Journal of Transformative Education, Canadian Journal of Dietetic Practice and Research, Journal of Sociology, and she is the recipient of Ryerson University's Research and Teaching Awards, and she's also a member of the College of Dietetics of Ontario and Dietitians of Canada. She is also the founding editor of the journal I just mentioned, the Journal of Critical Dietetics, which one last time can be viewed at www.criticaldietetics.org. So without further ado, I'd love to turn the mic to Jen.
I love the hug so much. Oh, what a warm welcome. Thank you, Yuka. And let me just get this set so I can concentrate on you. What an inspiring morning. Let's give an amazing, huge round of applause to these amazing speakers. Feeling incredibly inspired, and it's, what time is it, not even 10 o'clock? What a day. We are ready to go with more stories. We've already been listening to some incredible stories. I've been deeply moved by your stories, by your passion, by your perseverance, and by your commitment to your profession. And today I'm going to be moved by your stories and your commitment and your passion for this profession we call dietetics. And although we spell dietetics, dietitian a little bit differently sometimes, that does not mean we're that very different from each other. Stories. Raise your hand if you have a really firm grasp on the relevance for us sharing our stories to the way that you're going to practice dietetics. What's the relationship? Raise your hand if you get it. Stories and dietetics. All right, we have the right group here today. Because it is a little bit of a tricky connection to me. But I want to try to persuade you today through my own story and through your sharing of your stories and your hearing of a very meaningful story and talking about that, to the intimate relation between storytelling and enhanced ethical practice of that what we call dietetics. At Ryerson University, raise your hand if you know where that is. Okay, it's in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, almost directly north of here, a little bit to the east. Come and visit us sometime. In Toronto, I teach a course called The Art of Storytelling, and guess who I teach it to? Dietetic students. At first, they were not convinced that there would be any relevance there. Maybe they'd just get a good grade because, sure, they've read stories and maybe a couple tales on their lives. But later on, we became more excited and convinced by this idea that sharing our own stories can help us actually be better at listening and understanding what it's like to be asked to tell your story. What is a story? And is it different from narrative? You've heard me say story and narrative. I'm going to use them synonymously. But narrative is a little bit more formal way of understanding story. Narrative, we have to have a good plot. We have to have interesting characters. We have to have tension. Conflict usually results in a lot of tension. Has anyone ever had conflict in their relationship with others? Have you read a good story lately? So you know what a good story consists of. You're moved by and you're feeling with the characters in the story. And the ending is really important too. It has to have an ending that doesn't necessarily tie up all the loose pieces, loose threads, but that it keeps you thinking, stays with you. Have you ever had that experience of reading a book and you're really upset when it ends? You don't want it to end. When is the next one coming? I want to hear the continuation of this story. Your stories are like that. Your stories are like that as well. Being an academic and being a curious sort and being drawn to the field of dietetics because it is rather sciencey, I wanted to do some research on the effectiveness of storytelling on our ability to be better at practicing dietetics into the future. So this is what we call a longitudinal design, going into our qualitative and quantitative stats research methods classes. And so this is a qualitative research project at the beginning. We're following students into practice. And so the question was, does telling your own story enhance your ability to practice dietetics? Does telling your own story? No, we're not. We're only interested in the stories of our patients and our clients. Our stories aren't relevant. Well, I think that they are. And I am deeply convinced that they are. They're highly relevant. Highly relevant to a dietetic culture that supports one another, that respects difference and diversity, that is open to listening to things that we may not agree with, that can hear something radical like, I'm a vegan, and embrace that with excitement, enthusiasm, and support the health of that individual.
So that was the research question. And the first part of the study was just to really get a sense of those first students' experiences of reading my story and engaging with critical social theory. So you can mention the story, the longing for recognition story that I wrote, that came out of my own doctoral research. Did you know that if you go on to do a PhD, you can actually publish it as a story? I hope that convinced many of you to go on to a PhD, whether you write a story or not. I'm highly biased about that kind of education. Education is freedom. Thank you. Thank you, Benito Juarez. And so when we asked students at the end of the course what their experience was of that course, they shared with us three things. And so through thematic analysis, we learned the first thing was that storytelling, telling our stories, offers a new perspective on practice. Reading stories of practitioners offers a new perspective on practice. So expanding our understanding of what it means to be a practitioner. I've learned that there are many untold stories, and I guess that's because in our profession, and maybe even in others, because we're not really allowed to challenge certain views. Does that resonate for you? Some perspectives are difficult to shape. We were talking about this yesterday. How change is made possible in our profession. Some things may be easy to change. Some things may have not changed for decades. Hunger in America. Hunger in Canada. We need to be able to challenge certain views to change the fact that there's hunger. Hunger exists in families. Storytelling supports the finding of a professional voice. You are finding your professional voice every single day, even after you become a dietitian. Finding and refinding your professional voice. Taking the time to listen to the story. That's how my critical writing comes, because somebody took the time to read my story. I feel I've been listened to, and my ideas are important. So I think taking the time to listen to stories is important. That's a quote from one of the students in the class. And so can you see the connection between that experience of someone taking the time to listen to your story, how that might then translate into you listening to a patient or a client's story and how meaningful that is? How that might translate into you listening to your colleague's story of a difficult experience of being a dietitian or an intern or a student? Taking the time to listen. Isn't that the theme that came up? And finally, ways of knowing. Diverse ways of knowing. Dietetics, can I be so bold to say, hasn't really embraced many diverse ways of knowing. There's the dominant way of knowing, which is based on knowledge that comes out of a randomized controlled trial. And then there's a whole bunch of other ways of knowing that can't be represented by a p-value. And those ways of knowing come to us through the arts, through narrative, through wisdom, through inspiration, intuition, following your heart, being an advocate, the right thing to do. And so storytelling affords a little bit more space to engage with those ways of knowing. How many of you have had the experience so far? Raise your hands if you've seen different... I just saw you blowing that bubble. That is so awesome. You bring a smile to my face with that. I have to admit, I was on Facebook last night. Not this morning, last night. And I think the caption was, "Being normal is boring." And there was a picture of Marilyn Monroe blowing a big pink bubble. So you got it down. Being normal is boring. I couldn't find a better way to express, expanding different ways of life. Being normal, following the dog with you, is predictable or boring. So you never know in some kind of teachable moment. I love it. Thank you. What's your name?
Carly.
Carly? You should be an educator, Carly. We've heard it already this morning. My vision for dietetics. In my vision of for dietetics, we are called to act. We are called to the profession for sometimes different reasons. And then we act. We do act. And as educators, as mentors, as people who are profoundly committed to your future success, we want to support you in that action. In that action that's going to make a difference. That's going to make a difference for the world around us. Not only is it going to make a difference for you in terms of your income and perhaps your sense of personal accomplishment, but that your actions will make the world a better place. Do you think dietetics has the potential to do that? Of course. Yes, it does. Why have you been called here today? I'm going to describe for you the activity that we're going to do in a few moments. And I don't want anyone to panic, because it will be fun, and it will be challenging, and you're up for it. I want everyone to keep breathing. That's the most important thing. So if you feel like you stop breathing, just take a big breath in. Good. There's a point I'm trying to make here, and that stories are important. Stories often get marginalized as kind of those things that lack rigor. But as we heard and felt so beautifully this morning, a beautiful illustration of how stories actually inform and influence and enliven our profession. They are the basis in which this profession can be built. And so I want to invite you to hear a story and to listen in a very particular way so that you can then reflect on anything that you connect with in this story. Stories establish some urgency. They can evoke hope. Good stories. They can enable an emotional connection between the story sharers. When you're sharing a story, you don't have to have it all worked out. In fact, problems can be solved through the sharing of the story without knowing where you're going. The story itself can lead you to understanding and meaning. And when you hear a good story that has a resonance for you, you can be called and moved to action. You can connect with another. Is it, you don't have to raise your hand, you don't have to, answer this out loud, because it's a bit kind of a sensitive topic. But is it true that sometimes you feel that there may be a bit of competition or tension within the field? Maybe giggle of recognition. It's like nervous laughter, understatement of the day. So that's our experience in Canada as well. And so I've done a lot of research. In fact, Duke and I have worked on a project around resilience and burnout dietetics. And my theory is that it's predicated way down at the beginning there when we do have structures that foster competition. And now, you may hear people say, you can leave that behind. You've arrived, relax, love one another. It's hard to turn that switch off, isn't it? Well, today we're going to work on eroding some of those competitive forces that exist. Because if we're able to stay connected and hear one another, we're going to enable a whole different kind of dietetics. We're going to cause a dietetic revolution. And it's probably going to come out of some of this book that my good friend Evelyn is going to write, The Miseducation of Dietitians. Can't wait for that. And when you go on your book tour, please tell all of us, because we'll be lining up to get one signed. All right, we're almost to the main event and Kasha's story that she's going to share with us before you go and hear and listen and dig into and grapple with and challenge some of these ideas that I'm putting out to you. A radical dietitian from Canada comes here and is talking about stories. How is this going to help my patients reduce their cholesterol levels? It's actually a good question. Glad you asked. Are you familiar with agency? The sociological concept that we are agents, we are actors existing out in the world, doing our thing. And when we make choices based on a habit, based in the familiar and the safe, then those choices are less agentive. They're less transformative than if we're making choices in the uncertain moments, in the unpredictable moments. Your heart is beating and racing. You're having to act. What will you do? What will happen? Who will be affected? Maybe you've had some of those experiences already in your internship. I don't know, I've never answered this question before. I've never had this experience. What am I going to do? Stories can help you practice making choices in the unfamiliar terrain. And as you listen to stories and take the bold and courageous step of sharing your own stories, you are practicing ethical dietetic action. Okay, so going to just a second. What do you think is necessary for you to feel comfortable in sharing something personal within a group of people? I want you just to yell it out to me. Trust. What else? Process it yourself. So take time to let it sink in. Is that how I understand it? What else is necessary? Safety. What do you mean by that? There won't be any repercussions for what you say. So safety, personal safety, trust, taking time. Respect. We've heard that word already today. It's an important one. Respect. What does that mean? Respect. We hear that word a lot. Respect for difference. Respect for each other. Can you say more about respect?
Will I be put down on what I say? Or will it mean that what I say will be, there'll be no value to it? Or what I say, people say, oh, well, no, that's not what we're talking about. Will what I say have any value? Will you respect to listen to what I say and know that it has value? Because it's about myself. Or will you just say, oh, well, that's not going to do anymore, or she doesn't know what she's talking about, or it's unimportant?
I'm going to turn the mic over to Hazel. She's going to continue this. That was very rich. Thank you. You know, remember the woman in the galoshes? Yes. I'll save that comment. So, respect is a word we use a lot, maybe take for granted what it means. But when we break it down, we take a moment to break it down, we realize that it's a big word that carries a big responsibility. What else do we need? I heard something over here. Yes?
I would say courage.
Courage. The voice from the back.
Self-confidence.
Self-confidence. What else? Go ahead.
Confidentiality.
Thank you. What does that mean?
So what I say here is going to stay here, and I'm not going to find out that everyone else out there found out about it.
So when you're transit today, heading over for lunch, and yeah, did you hear what Harley said when she mentioned that? And oh, Carly's boyfriend or girlfriend is sitting in the seat beside her and didn't know that Carly felt that way about her. End of relationship. Confidentiality is a big word too. Often we take it for granted. So when we're talking today, what says in this room and other little breakout rooms stays in this room. It's difficult sometimes for us humans who like to go on Facebook, chat, gossip. It's good professional practice for you, for all of us, to practice what it means to keep things confidential. Anything else that we need? Yes?
I guess there are some pitfalls here vis-a-vis free agency that argue curation too. Careful, appropriate selection to yourself.
No pressure there. Can I add to that? That there will be no pressure to tell the most effective story. But there will be an invitation for you to decide if that is a story you want to share. If you want to, you have to decide if you're going to say anything at all. Raise your hand if you're the person who starts the conversation first. When the teacher asks the question, you're the first to put up your hand. Come on, you're all very confident people. Yes, yes, good, Anna. Okay, I'm going to ask you not to say anything, okay? No, not really, but sort of. I want you to hold back your instant impulse to share your incredibly valid and amazing intellect stories with us. Create a bit of space for someone to enter who rarely does share stories. You know who they are, but we don't often hear from the quiet observers. How many of you are comfortable with extended periods of silence? Okay, those are the more introverted folks. Those are probably the people who didn't put their hand up in the last question. Silence holds an enormous amount of meaning. Try not to fill silence too quickly. Think about how you're feeling. Notice your feelings when there is silence. Not just here, but everywhere in your interactions. Respect, and you shared these guidelines and more. I want to share Kasha's story, but first I want to tell you a little bit about how Kasha came to write a story. The other aspect of the research that I'm doing is on digital narratives. So one can write a 50-page story for a class, and one can be incredibly moved and affected by that story. Or one can create a digital narrative, which is about a 3-minute YouTube video. And let's see, in my research, if those stories carry the same impact. What are their differences, what are their similarities? So Kasha was one of those folks who opted to try to create a digital narrative. And she has so graciously and courageously decided to share it with you today. So we'll listen to Kasha's story in a moment. When you're listening to the story, when you're listening to Kasha, when your heart is open and you're receiving Kasha's experience, I want you to do something else at the same time. I want you to pay attention to your reactions to that story. This is not easy. Some people might find it easy to text and talk on the phone at the same time. That's not the same thing. I want you to do some meta-communication. Meta-communication. So you're receiving Kasha's story, and you're also noticing your reactions, your thoughts, and your emotions to what Kasha is saying. This is really important to becoming a reflective and reflexive practitioner, where you can be listening and paying attention to yourself at the same time. noticing what responses you have, noticing what Hazel said, if you're having a reaction to what someone is saying, when you're perhaps putting that difference into a deviant category, when we need to consider difference as an incredibly important resource for your own learning. And I want you to pay attention to your response to these questions as well. I'm asking a lot of you, I know, right before lunch. These questions are questions that the facilitators in the small groups that you will go to after Kash's story, they'll have these questions. And you're not expected to answer them all. In fact, there won't be time for everyone to answer all the questions. So you can just let that burden go right now. But I want you to pay attention to the first question in particular. What brought you to dietetics? What called you to this field? And perhaps the first time, what resonates for you most with Kash's story? Here we are, we've arrived. So this is just about a 3-minute YouTube video. Does anyone have any questions before I start the video? Does anybody wonder what room you're going to be going to? Or are you staying with me right here in the present? The room divisions will be shared just after the video, so you don't have to worry about that yet. It's all taken care of by some very brilliant people. Okay. Questions? You ready? So paying attention, listening and listening again. Is there a way to turn the lights down? Let's set the mood. Thank you so much. Question in the back or stretching? Stretching.
Grocery list in English. I dream in English. I think in English. I am finishing my master's degree. I will become a dietitian next year. I'm thinking about a PhD. I am so busy. I can't be there for my sisters in the way they need me anymore. I still vividly remember when my sister told me I didn't care about them. All I care about is my silly career. We still talk, but it's very superficial. There are moments when I want to pick up the phone, and I want to say something else this time. I dial the number, and I hang up. I don't know where to start. not with me. I have earned my own career, my own life, but I lost my sisters.
In your mind. So that was Kash's story. Room assignments. Someone very clever gave you a folder, and we're going to assign your room by the color of your folder. So now, I would like you all to stand up and make your way to the breakout rooms.
Excuse me, I just want to announce, just so we can move our schedule, it's actually 10:25, so we need to reconvene in this room at, you should stop, we'll give you 30 minutes, so stop at 5 minutes to 11, and then we'll start back up here at 11. Announcements, if you could quiet down, please. I did want to let you know that
There should be another literally everything this was
can I have your attention, please?
But any like
I wanted to let you know that one of the speakers, Dr. Metz, has a book that she wrote, and some of her books are in the back. Jackie's book, we're hoping arrives today. We'll have it over in the when we're going to lunch, and she's willing to do some signing. So if hopefully they'll come. Otherwise, we'll have them here and you can contact us to get them. And also that Jackie is going to close up the session here for the next few minutes. And then she has also agreed to kind of hang out after this afternoon session. So she'll be here. And those that would like to stay for another hour for an informal conversation with Jackie are welcome to do that. She's going to make herself available. Okay, so I'm going to let her close up, and then we're going to, and then we'll move into our next workshop.
So, how did it go? I feel the energy is certainly higher than when you left. That is a very good sign. Connection actually energizes people who are very good sign. Anything that you could share with me while maintaining confidentiality? Sharing your own experience of that? Was it as frightening as you thought it would be? Everyone kept breathing? What happened? Was it hard to stop? Good. That's a really great sign. Still a few folks coming in. But I will take this time just to close our session, our time together today. And it was a really quick ride through some of my thoughts around the power of storytelling, the art of storytelling, and the importance of narrative as for building intra-professional connections as a way of strengthening our professional community, as a way of subverting any of the relational challenges that we encounter as a profession. And this will revolutionize the dietetic profession, telling each other our stories. I want to end with, I guess it's an acknowledgement, a dedication. Let's call it a dedication. I want to dedicate this talk to a dear friend named Martina Chippendale. I'm wondering if anybody has heard Martina's name before. That would really be something. Has anyone heard Martina's name? Martina Chippendale is from Australia. And it was one of those instances where a friend of a friend of a friend said, oh, you should connect with Martina because she is a storyteller and she's a dietitian. Maybe it was said the other way. She's a dietitian. And so we connected and we collaborated with a few other people on a presentation about narrative at the International Congress of Dietetics in Sydney. I wanted to find dietitians in Australia who were as passionate about storytelling as I was, so we could share that passion with other dietitians. And so I met Martina. And we did a presentation in a much smaller room, but it was filled with people, and there were people standing in the back, all dietitians. And I shared some of the work that I've done, and I'm a student colleague who's been doing research on interprofessional narratives. So bringing different professions together and sharing stories is a way to enhance our relationships across allied health boundaries. She did some presentation on the research. And then it was Martina's turn to talk. And she told a story. And she held our attention rapt. She was what we sometimes call a master storyteller. Now that word master has some problems with it. But I think you can understand what I'm trying to convey with her artfulness at connecting through her stories. Martina Chippendale passed away on February 14th of this year. And it was a very sad day for me because I felt like we lost a connection to stories. But, and this is a slide from Martina's presentation, and when I saw this slide, I said, Martina, are you sure you don't want to include other slides? Because, you know, you have 20 minutes to talk. She said, no, that's it. I said, okay. Kind of reveals a little bit of my control issues in PowerPoint. Says something about myself. So, although Martina has passed away, she has offered many seeds that are blowing in the wind as stories that she's told. And today this slide for me is so poignant because I feel that in your radical political way, you are some of the seeds that Martina has spread around the world as people who are committed to storytelling in the profession of dietetics as a powerful means for strengthening our profession, for staying connected to each other, and for sharing your stories. And for your willingness to participate, for your openness to this wild and almost crazy idea that stories can have a place in our own professional development, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. I want to thank you, but I also want to thank your courageous group facilitators who stepped a little bit out of the box, and for some of them a lot out of the box, to make this possible, for trusting that whatever was going to happen today would happen. And I can't wait to hear more about your experience in those groups. Thank you again.
All right, so thank everyone for their participation in this, and thank you. Now I'd like to introduce to you Ms. Kyla Gilmore. She's a licensed clinical professional counselor and a dance movement therapist, and she's going to work with us a little bit on a movement exercise.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me. I am a dance movement therapist, and I'm not sure if by show of hands, does anybody know what that is? That's really exciting to me. Wonderful. So it is one of the expressive or creative arts therapists, along with music therapy, art therapy, and drama therapy. I practice in inpatient and partial hospitalization. Dance movement therapy has really been around since the beginning of time because, as you guys may be familiar with, based on various cultural practices, dance is a way that people connect. And I love hearing that you guys are talking about the theme of connecting and how that can kind of revitalize communities. It can bridge gaps. It can help people communicate things that maybe we don't always have the words to communicate. It became a formalized field in about the 60s, and it was founded by Marion Chase, who worked in inpatient settings, as well as with veterans. And she saw really phenomenal things happening when people connect with one another through the movement experience. So psychotherapy can be very, very powerful. We don't always have words for what is going on inside of us. And there are many people who don't have words to communicate with at all either. So dance movement therapy is a really great bridge for connecting with somebody who maybe doesn't have access to verbal language. So today, I know some of you might be a little less comfortable moving, and that's okay. We're going to do it as a very large group. And what I thought about today, when I heard the ideas of your theme kind of about connection and cultural connections and multiculturalism and health and well-being, I thought we should do a movement choir. Does anyone know what a movement choir is? No? Modern day flash mob? Everybody knows what that is, right? Absolutely. So it's just kind of recycled itself throughout the culture, many different cultures in many different ways. So I want people to shout out some different positive, health-focused cultural values. Compassion, I got the first one. Anybody else?
Love.
Love, beautiful. Support, respect. Belonging. Keep going. Honesty. Faith, honesty. Loyalty. Loyalty. Any others? Understanding. Respect. Wonderful. So these, I can imagine, are the values that you guys bring into your work. Am I correct? And hopefully these are the values that you also are trying to bring into your own personal lives. Right? So what I would like to do, and I was trying to see how we could chunk ourselves. It's going to be slightly challenging, but I just ask you to kind of work with this process. I think if we could do 6 groups, let's do this, if we can, with as little talking as possible. I actually want to really challenge us to be as nonverbal as possible. And I think if we kind of chunk a section here and a section here, let's see if we can make 6 groups in the next 2 minutes. And you don't have to all necessarily be standing in a circle, but sort of be able to see each other. And if 6 feels like too much, we can make it smaller. So just try to face one another, spread out. Yeah, okay. So again, I'm challenging you to be as nonverbal as possible. Okay, we're getting there, we're getting there. Wonderful. So I see my circle in the front. We're going to call this group 1. I see my circle. I think this could be its own little group right here. This is group 2. Ladies, if you can cut over that way a little bit. Great. I see group 3. Perfect. You can all see each other. I see group 4 is happening over here. Sort of. I think we could do a 4 and a 5, and then we'll have a 6. So we almost there? I think you guys can join that one, and then you guys can kind of go. So I'm going to go over where I see our groups again, to have everyone's attention. So group one, let's raise your hands, shake it out, shake it out, shake it out. We all know who group one is, right? Okay, beautiful. Group two, I want you to stomp your feet, stomp your feet, stomp your feet, stomp your feet. We know who group two is. Group three, give me a whoop whoop, whoop whoop. Group four, let's do this. Let's have you guys join a little bit over here. Group four. Group four, shake your hips, shake your hips, shake your hips, shake your hips. Group five, chicken dance. I don't know. Okay, we know who you are. I'm just trying to identify who's who. And group six, we've got chicken head, shake your head. Okay, we know who everybody is. So I want you guys to look at each other in your group, and I want us to pick a value that is important to your new community. So it could be compassion, it could be respect. And we're going to try to have them be different. So think about some of the values. And then I want you guys to, as a group, in 5 to 10 minutes, and I'm going to come around to each group. And again, we're going to do this part, the second part, without a lot of talking. I want you to go around the circle, and I want you to give a gesture that represents that value. So let's say that this group picks respect, and you're going to talk really quietly amongst yourselves and pick your value. You're not going to say what it is to the group. And you're going to each go around, and you're going to give a gesture that represents that. So if it's respect, so you're going to all see that, and you're going to mirror it. And then you're going to select one gesture, and then I'll get to the next step. So in about 5 minutes, I'll pick up the mic again. I'm going to come around to each group. Again, the assignment is to pick a value, a community value, and to go around the circle and to do a gesture from each individual. Okay, here I come around. Okay, thank you. That's quite a task. So I thank you guys for working on that. That's not easy to do in such large groups in the spacing that you have. So the next part is we are going to teach one another our gesture. So I'm going to highlight a group that looks really ready. And this, we're going to really, again, challenge ourselves to be as nonverbal as possible. So you're going to want to face this group. You can stay as you are, or you can face them. And you're going to do your gesture. And then we are going to mirror, as in show them how we see it. And we're going to respond. Okay. Wonderful. Let's all try. Beautiful. Let's remember that. Group 2. Ready? All right. 1, 2, 3. Everybody else, let's try it. It's stepping, feeling your weight, and swaying. That's really important, right? Okay, we're going to do 1 and 2. I see a lot of smiles in that group. I think that's an important part of that one. Group 3. Beautiful. Let's try it as you can with your neighbor. They're making hearts, interlocking their hands. Let's all try that. Okay, 1 through 4. Ready? And... Beautiful! Group 5. Linking arms. Oh, and it goes gradually around the circle. Beautiful. Okay, so let's do 1 through 5. Are we ready? Now link up. Maybe you want to find a starting point. Don't leave anybody out. Unless maybe you're just the star of everyone and everyone gets to focus on you. Last group. Let's see that one more time. Okay, let's all try that. So you're doing the I love you? Oh, we're together. Okay. We're going to do them all. I want to make sure you guys really know them. Okay? Here we go again. I want you all to face each other as best as we can, face inward. Face inward. Some people, you might have your back to them just slightly, but we're going to face inward. We're going to do this, hold on. Let's hear. What's the value from this? Admiration. Admiration. Confidence. Unity. Love. Trust.
Empathy.
Supportive. Empathy. Okay, you can use both words. It's okay. They all ended up being different, which is really interesting because there were a lot of people thought of love and compassion. They all ended up being different. So now we're going to do this several times, facing one another. We're going to acknowledge the different values, different community values that were chosen. And we're all going to kind of join in by reflecting and mirroring that we see these values, okay? And we're going to try to do this without any talking. And I really want you to look at one another as you do this, okay? I'm going to join the circle. Somebody's giving us some music. Okay, let's take a breath in as a group. And it's okay if we kind of have to stagger a little bit. Let's just feel our feet on the ground. Feel your sense of self. Take a breath in. And here we go. I'm really impressed that we were able to do this with the space limitations. You guys did a really wonderful job. So, we're going to do it again, but we're going to do it in half and half, okay? So you're going to watch each other, and then we're going to do it as one large group. So with this group, please stand up and face your peers. I'll do it with you. Okay. And you're just going to witness. I'm not just saying that. There's something that happens when people come together in movement or in silence, in witnessing, in breathing together. There's something that happens. And I find it very moving and very powerful. Anybody else? Raise your hand if you felt anything, especially when we were silent. So you really get to feel that. I feel all goosebumpy right here. It's great. It's a good feeling. It's a beautiful feeling. And so the power of connection, the power of the group, right? We are much more powerful when we're connected with other people. People are happier when they're connected with other people. We self-regulate better when we're connected with other people. So I thank you very much for trying this. And again, thinking about what are the health-based, wellness-based values that we want to acknowledge, witness, and help grow in the communities that we serve. Is it faith? Is it respect? Is it honor? Is it, what did we have? What were other words we had? Compassion came up today. We had love come up today, right? And even some of the values that maybe are not our own. To remember that they are really important to reflect on, to support, to acknowledge, to mirror back. Did anyone have any kind of insights or anything come up for them during the activities? Anyone done a flash mob before? You have? What was it like for you? A Bollywood flash mob? Oh my goodness, that sounds like a total delight. So did you practice ahead of time? Yeah. So most are pre-choreographed. Absolutely. So any responses to this? What was it like being witnessed by others or witnessing others? You guys see the importance and the value in that in your work. It was vulnerable. Can you say more about that?
You're opening yourself in a way that I was opening myself in a way that I hadn't done before.
Okay.
It's new.
What part of it was new?
The witnessing and the receiving.
It can feel very intimate. And because not everybody's really comfortable with moving, right? Really challenges you to explore that edge of being pushed into something that maybe is challenging for you. Absolutely. And oftentimes we're pushing our clients or the people that we work with into new ways of exploring things. So I think it's really important as a provider in whatever role that you can really take on what that quality is like when you're asking someone to grow and change. And so you guys explored that a little bit right now in this. Anyone else? Yes, please. Yeah, absolutely. And invariably, in most of my work, when people move together, that happens. Definitely happens. Other things happen too. But it does happen, and there's a sense of joy, I think, that can be created. And I saw tons of smiles and laughter, and you guys might not be in groups already as we formed them, but you became a cohesive group really pretty quickly. I was very impressed. Very quickly you became a cohesive group, you talked about your values, you found a gesture, and you created something. That is not easy to do, I have to tell you, so I think we have a lot of dancers in the room, a lot of performers. Anything else? Yeah, I think being a witness is a really important role, and one I never try to downplay. And how do we witness without judgment? How do we check our judgments that come up? Because they do come up, and that's okay. It's just a part of life. We all have our preconcepts that come with us, and our own values that come with us, and how do we receive verbally or non-verbally and respond to someone? And so I think we can all take that into our practice and into our work and into our lives. How do we receive? Please.
There was a fluidity and a seamlessness to it all. It was like a full circle.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely, they flowed into each other really beautifully. And I think that that sometimes speaks to that collective unconscious thing that can happen in really large groups and happens all the time everywhere. And it's just, I think, really valuable to tune into it because I think we all have that sense and we have those abilities, but it's kind of hooking that awareness in. And it did happen. I mean, we had this flow right into this flow, right? I mean, it was just really very organic and natural. And I think many things are when we allow them to be. You talked about control. I tend to be a person who, when I feel anxious or angry or frustrated, get rigid, you know, and this has to be this way. Well, wait a second, why? And letting things flow, letting things breathe and flow in breath, you know, and feeling. So, please.
That whole objective what we just did kind of reminded me of something that I did when I was home for spring break. One of my best friend's mom, she really like the whole energy spiritual thing. She was telling us the whole sending receiving thing with when you hug someone, you know. You hug someone really briefly, but she was saying you can't get a proper connection or exchange of energy unless you hug someone for 20 seconds. So she made us all hug each other for 20 seconds, and it literally seemed like forever. It was really I didn't feel vulnerable, but it was something, used to hugging someone, but again, like putting control over it and making it last for a full 20 seconds. And then it felt awkward because I felt vulnerable, and then you let go, and it's like, wow, it didn't feel awkward anymore. Like you just feel like you, I don't know, calm, connected.
It's kind of training literally your nervous system to handle that sort of contact or connection because our social world or our emotional world might train us or we might learn different things. But I think we can, like I said, tune ourselves into kind of the energies of others around us, the values of others around us, or the energies that are existing in the world around us. So thank you for that. Yes?
I like the meritocratic and thematic element of the world decision-making process.
I don't know what that means. I'm going to be really honest.
Sort of survival of the fittest, but the idea that you seem to have just the most merit and some that people who had more experience, or more or less the fact that the leader, their views just tended to be looked at without all that much debate about it. In terms of mimetic, it followed a meme like habit, as in because you were trying to get a coherent gesture for the group or a set of gestures. Once we got just a general idea of what we wanted to do for our values, people would kind of copy each other and started messing with the gesture and repeating what other people did. There's one mimicry in there as well until we came up with something coherent that was pretty good. We reached very rapid consensus that way.
Yeah, and I thought that was really impressive. And there's something about it, we weren't able to all stand in a circle where we all kind of are on the same level with one another, and that it is a group growth, and it's a group process. So thank you for that, and educating me on those words. I saw one other hand, and then I think you guys have to kind of transition. Very here and now. And dance movement therapy is really about what's going on in here right now. What are you feeling in this very moment? What is the connection between the body and the mind and the awareness of the world around you? And I think simplicity opens up doors to some amazing things and play, like a really simple structure to spontaneous play. And I think play is really healthy and really important. And so it makes sense when we kind of think back to those younger years when we did really simple games, really simple gestures and movements. So thank you all so much for your trying this out today and welcoming me here. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your conference.
All right, so now we will proceed on over to the other campus. We're in Farmer Hall, which is the newest building. It's on the northwest corner of the campus. There are those of you that drive, don't your car up if somebody needs a ride. There is a shuttle that'll come intermittently in front of the building if you don't have a ride. And we're going to have lunch over there, and then we'll move to our theater space for the afternoon session. Thank you.
came a couple years ago, the author is Wildman. Again, it's in your packet. And they looked at BMI and how predictive that was of health. And they found if you use BMI, I won't have the exact percentages, but it's approximately 1/3 who fall into the higher BMI categories are metabolically healthy. And you're going to miss, maybe it was 2/3, I'm sorry, I'm not going to get it exactly right. 1/3 of thinner people weren't metabolically healthy. And you're basically wrong about 50% of the time. So again, that idea that it's so important to look at each of the body shapes and sizes, including one's own, rather than the pursuit of an idealized weight or shape. You may recognize this picture. It was from a Dove campaign many years ago. As you're working with clients, because this stuff is really hard, our culture is so fat-phobic, it's really, really the harder. When I work with people with eating and body image issues, eating stuff is much easier to help people solve than body image concerns. So it's important to start to present your clients with other resources, like go to an art museum. If you go to an art museum, what kind of body shapes do we see? They're rounder, right? You don't see this thinner look is really pretty recent in our history as being seen as what's desirable. There's also, again, in your packet, I gave you a lot of names of books. There's The Obesity Myth, there's Big Fat Lies, again, Linda Baker's Health at Every Size, that really give you and your clients. I recommend books to my clients all the time because if you're just sitting in a room with me and I'm starting to talk about, you can really pursue your health at every size, you can make yourself healthier without focusing on weight loss, they just think like you're making this up. So I find it really important that I'm giving them a lot of resources to say, this isn't just me, there's people in all these different disciplines talking about the same thing. All right, we're going to spend a bunch of time on this one. Again, is the term intuitive eating familiar to most of you? Raise your hand if that's something you're familiar with. Okay, so it looks like most of you. So in the tenets of health at every size, what we say is eating based on internal cues of hunger, satiety, and appetite, rather than on external food plans or diets. As in the last presentation, they mentioned Evelyn Tribole and Elise Resch have the book Intuitive Eating. Jane Hirschman and Carol Munter in the book Overcoming Overeating. Janine Roth, you may have heard of. So people use intuitive eating, demand feeding, mindful eating gets used. I like the word attuned eating because I like the idea of really thinking, am I attuned to myself? We're all talking about the same thing. And as I go through the steps of attuned eating, I just want to say that what we're looking at helping our clients develop is a healthy relationship with food. A healthy relationship with food doesn't mean eating healthy foods all the time. Not that healthy foods aren't important, but we want our clients to have a relaxed relationship where food is a source of nourishment and a source of pleasure. I love food. I imagine part of why you chose this field is you love food. And food is meant to be enjoyed. And, if you think of the angst that people feel around food, it's really depressive. We've gotten so frightened of food that people can't just sit and enjoy it. So attuned eating or intuitive eating really teaches people how to eat from the inside out rather than the outside in. So instead of following this plan or that plan, really learning to be in tune with what your own body is saying and to honor that. When I do workshops, I'm not going to do it with you guys because I think you know this, but when I do workshops with therapists and I say, how do you know when you're physically hungry? I get answers like, I have a headache, I'm crabby, I can't concentrate, I feel weak, and what I'm hearing, and this is true when I do it for just the general population, people are coming because they're struggling with this issue, is that a lot of times people don't recognize hunger until they've waited way too long. And when I work with, my focus is working with binge eating and compulsive eating. When I work with those people, they often have lost their connection to what hunger feels like. A lot of times they're reaching for food for emotional issues, so they don't let themselves get hungry, or there's a deprivation going on, so it just looks good, I've got to have it. You'll hear habit when I sit down with TV, or go to the theater, I gotta get popcorn, watch TV, I always get a bag of chips. So it's really interesting to ask people, Do you know when you're hungry, and how do you know? Just helping people begin to make that connection is really powerful. So that's the first step of attuned eating. The next question is, what are you hungry for? And again, when I'm working with clients who have a long history of yo-yo dieting, they have followed so many plans, they've been told what to eat for so long, that this question, they're dumbfounded, like, what am I hungry for? I don't know, or I've never thought about it. It's a really important question, helping people start to learn. And, I don't know what each one of you will think as you hear this, about do you believe that people can trust their bodies? But it's really interesting from my perspective when I do this work. I have never met anybody, this is the fear of people who dieted a long time. I've never met anybody who only wants ice cream and cake and candy and chips when they normalize their eating and listen to their bodies. But I have never met anybody either who only wants salads and broccoli and boneless, skinless chicken breast. We like variety. And when you listen to your body, you'll find that you want a lot of different kinds of things. And in terms of health issues, again, we only have limited time, but I want to just say, let's say I have a client with high cholesterol, and they're doing this work, and they're learning to listen to their body, and they want ice cream. Well, they can make a choice. They're in charge of their eating. It's not about control. It's not like you can't have ice cream, you're bad if you have ice cream, you must be sabotaging your health. I'm hungry for, what am I hungry for? I'm hungry for ice cream. How would it feel in my body? It would feel good, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like quite the right match because of my cholesterol. I want to take good care of myself. So I think today, I'm going to have some sorbet so I can get that cold, kind of creamy feeling, but I will feel more caretaking to me. This approach is really about caretaking. But on another day, if they're saying, you know what, I just really want some ice cream, is it going to make a break? Anything? No. So people learn how to make adjustments based on their own needs, their own issues. People can do this work who are vegetarian, so they're who are kosher, philosophical concerns. What's the right match for one person isn't going to be the right match for another. But it's a wonderful process to help people to learn questions like, do I want something hot? Do I want something cold? Do I want something spicy? Do I want something salty? And really think about how does it feel in my body. And that's the focus of attuned eating. It's not about being good or bad, but what feels good and what feels bad. And once you have people in that strong place, then they can make decisions about what supports their health. But if somebody's caught in the diet binge cycle and you start telling them, don't eat this and don't eat that, it just becomes more of the deprivation that then results in the overeating. All right, the joy of movement. Oh, I cannot talk about attuned eating and not talk about fullness. Final step is, what's enough? How do I decide when to stop? And really what's key is to get people to tune in and to listen. So when people come to me who have been caught in the diet binge cycle, usually they're doing a lot of eating where they feel really uncomfortable afterwards. And now they're so used to it, they don't even, they know they're uncomfortable, but that's just the norm. As they start to collect experiences, and that's how I go about this, it's not like all of a sudden you're going to become an attuned eater. If somebody comes and says, oh, I'll just only eat out of hunger now, trust me, they've started another diet. We call it the stomach hunger diet. It's you work your way out of this kind of compulsive or binge eating. So eventually people can start to pay attention. If there's no signal to start, there's no signal to stop. So if you start eating when you're hungry, there's no cue to tell you you've had enough. Likewise, if you're, if there's somebody who's at a party and pizza looks good, but they're dieting and they're not going to eat pizza, they're just eating salad, right? But then they get home and they start eating brownies and cookies, or maybe they have some pizza at home. They would have been better off just having the pizza, right, that they were hungry for. And if you're hungry and eat what you're hungry for, just can everybody think of an experience where you're hungry and you got exactly what you were hungry for? How did it feel?
Amazing.
Amazing. What else? Satisfying, wonderful. Now think of a time you were hungry and you ate something that wasn't the right match. Maybe it was what you're supposed to eat or what was available. How did that feel?
Miserable.
Frustrating, miserable, disappointing. Okay, do you hear the difference? This is so important. We have people going through life feeling wonderful, amazing, satisfied every time they eat, and then there's people who feel terrible every time they eat. It really changes how you live in the world. And that's the gift you can give your clients, is to help them learn to do this for themselves. So, you know, when we talk about mindfulness and eating, that really has to do with being present, paying attention, starting to listen. And what you'll hear from clients who are doing that overeating, feeling uncomfortable, as they really start to reconnect hunger and satiation to their body, it's no longer tolerable. So even if they're overeating as they work their way out, you start to see it go down because it no longer feels okay. And that's the question I teach my clients to ask all the time. How do I want to feel when I'm done eating? I can have this if I want it. How will I feel? Is that okay with me? And it's a really wonderful process to guide people through. Okay. Encouraging all physical activities for the associated pleasure and health benefits rather than following a specific routine or regimen of exercise for the primary purpose of weight loss. Movement, like we experienced today, can be joyful. For many people struggling with eating and weight issues, it's a punishment. And it becomes part of the diet cycle. So I do it for a while, but then I miss a day, so I stop. I don't go, I feel guilty. I had one client tell me just the other day, when I overeat, I think, why bother exercising because I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. So it's really important to help your clients learn to unhook exercise or movement. Exercise is sometimes even a triggering word for people. Exercise, physical activity, movement from weight. And start to look at what activities make them feel good. And it's really a shame because we know that when people are physically active, there are incredible health benefits, right? If we look at diabetes, cholesterol, or depression. And those benefits are there regardless of whether weight is lost. But a lot of times people will give up. Well, exercise, I'm not losing weight. Why bother? There's a lot of reasons to bother. I think even doctors might tell their heavier clients to exercise and forget that their thin clients need to exercise. We need to make a weight-neutral paradigm where we look at what are sustainable health behaviors that benefit all of us without that focus on weight. All right, an end to weight bias. And again, here's the social justice part of this process. Recognition that body shape, size, and weight are not evidence of any particular way of eating, level of physical activity, personality, psychological issue, or moral character. Confirmation that there is beauty and worth in every body. That may happen. So I want to ask you to take a moment, and if you have a pen, pencil, piece of paper, iPad, something, and I want you to, real quickly, looking at the word thin, we're going to start with the word thin, just jot down a few words that come to mind. When you think about someone who's thin, what are your associations? Okay, before people start to leave, I want you to now do the same thing with the word fat. Please write down your association with the word fat. All right, if I can get your attention back. Usually when I do this, I have a board or some newsprint and I write them. And I don't have that today. So I want to just have you call out, when you think of the word thin, what are some of the things you wrote down? And don't, whatever it is. Sexy, skinny, happy, confident. Sorry? Cancer.
Size 0.
Size 0. Young. Active, fit, beautiful. Okay. Now let's hear some of your associations to the word fat. Lazy. Unattractive. What did you say? Unhealthy.
Poor.
No confidence, no control. Okay. So let's see how I do, because I knew I wasn't going to be able to write these down. Somehow the much shifted. But healthy, sexy, attractive, successful, active, happy, self-control versus couch potato, ugly, unhealthy, lazy, eats too much, sluggish, unhappy. Now, when you look at that list, you look at the way we divide it, what does that tell you about what's going on here? What's going on here? What are we doing?
Prejudging.
Sorry?
Prejudging.
We're prejudging.
We've been brainwashed.
We've been brainwashed. Yeah, I heard the word. We're stereotyping, right? This is outright stereotyping. And I'm not looking at anybody in particular. You know, it's really important to as I do this, to remind you to have a lot of compassion for yourself, because this is the culture we've grown up with. This is the list any audience I go to makes. We've grown up and these things are so deeply internalized that even if we want to change the thought, it takes some work for most of us. So I really want to emphasize that. I did this last spring at the Psychotherapy Networker Conference. So I was speaking to a lot of therapists, and this guy came up to me later in this event, and he was beside himself because he said it never occurred to him that he was being prejudiced. And he was so upset, and he really just took it in, and it really disturbed him. It was interesting to see such an intense response, and you know, we hadn't had time to process it in the workshop. So it's really important to just be aware that we've learned these, we've all internalized them, and this is what we bring with us, and it takes undoing. You know, if you're buying into the health at every size idea of being weight neutral, of looking at each individual, of not judging based on weight. I also wanted to tell a story about a couple of months ago. I had a newer client, I've been seeing for a month or two, who said to me, Judith, I've been to a lot of dietitians, and even though they say they're not judging me about my weight, you're the only person who I truly feel that with. Now, I'm not telling you that story to say, look how great I am, but I am telling you to say, our clients know, they pick up. And so, you know, really that's the biggest message I have today, is that your attitude matters. What you think you feel, even if you think you're not showing your client, they come to, our clients are very sensitive, they know. So I just encourage you to do that reflection, look at some of the resources, and see it as a journey for yourself. I'm going to spend a little bit of time just talking about, as you work with clients, some strategies that you can use to help them build a positive body image. When I do workshops sometimes with people who are coming to learn how to end the preoccupation of food and weight, and by the way, I just want to say, despite the fact I do this work and I'm known for it, so most people who come to me know I'm not a weight loss program. Everybody who comes to me wants to lose weight. I mean, it's really hard in this culture to change that. And so I stay very empathic with that. And it is, you know, especially if somebody is very fat, it is hard to be. It is harder to be in this culture. That's the reality. And it's hard for people to make peace with it. So being very compassionate and helping them with some tools. So when I do a workshop, I would ask people to write down their last 24 hours of negative body thought. You can do this with an individual person, but it's wonderful if you're ever doing a workshop or a group. So everybody writes down what they've told themselves, and we make a list. And that list is usually things like, I'm disgusting, you know, I can't be seen in public, I can't date, how to let yourself go. And it goes on, and I'm being kind. People are really harsh. And I read the list back to everybody. And as people hear it, you can feel the mood in the room get very depressed, very sad. And what we talk about is that people never say that to anybody else, the things they say to themselves. And really starting to look at how do you change those neural pathways, what wires together, fires together. And people have it just so wired. I look in the mirror, I start to yell. And really beginning to say, stop, you know, and start to replace it with kinder, more compassionate thoughts. So the next thing on the list is, you know, is actually the teacher might say, if yelling made me thinner, I'd be there. The yelling doesn't work. In fact, think about it. If somebody yells at themselves constantly, how do they feel? Shame, bad, sad, depressed, angry. And what is compulsive addiction do when you issue things that way? Eats, right? So the yelling doesn't help. And so helping people begin to be more compassionate with themselves. And I'll talk about some more compassion in a moment. Let's do a quick exercise. Everybody, if you're comfortable, just close your eyes for a moment. And what we we all live in this culture, so chances are you've had that negative body thought recently at some time. I want you to think of either the most recent bad body thought you've had or one that crops up for you. And imagine yourself typing it into your computer. Just type it up on your imaginary screen that you're visualizing. Now I want you to imagine yourself hitting the delete button. And now I want you to take what you said to yourself and write a compassionate response. Maybe tuning into a more compassionate part of yourself. Imagine what I might say to you, or what somebody who cares about you might say. Just type that into your screen. Okay, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Oh, if you had a good one, hit save so you can remember to go back to it. Does anybody have one that they could share with us where they have a negative body thought or able to come up with a compassionate response and are willing to share? Anybody? Great. So I can think of somebody in my group who did it and came up with, my arms are too flabby. I'm embarrassed to wear a tank top in the summer. And what she changed her to, first is, these are the arms I hug my children. It's really nice. That's just one example. Now, I don't know if you're not sharing because you don't want to reveal, which I understand, or if it was hard to come up with a compassionate response. But I will say clients will struggle. And so if you can begin to help them, even if it's a response like, my body's a reflection of my genetics and the years I've struggled with my overeating problem. That's a much kinder response to oneself than I'm disgusting. So it's something to really cultivate with your clients. Okay. This scale, the number on this will not tell you what a great person you are, how much your friends and family love you, if you're kind, smart, and funny, etc. Who we are is much broader than the number on the scale. So when I work with people to make peace with body, and really my goal in the beginning is to end the body hatred. I don't expect people to suddenly love their bodies, but if they can start to end the body hatred and reach a sense of acceptance, making some peace. One of the things to look at is clothes. If you ask somebody who's dieting, well, how many sizes of clothes do you have in your closet? Usually there's at least 3. And if you think of the diet programs, the idea is if you see those skinny jeans, it's supposed to motivate you to get into them. Well, when you can't get into them, how do you feel? I know I get repetitive, but how do you feel? Discouraged, depressed, angry, sad. And what is it? Compulsive or binge eater doing when she feels that way? Turns to food. So the thing that was supposed to motivate you harms you. And it's really important, if you think about when you get dressed in the morning, how you go out in the world affects the way you feel during the day, right? And if so many people are waiting to buy clothes until they lose weight, so they have clothes they don't like. So I do a lot of work helping people get rid of, store away clothes that don't fit at their current size, and make sure that they have a closet full of colors, of styles that feel good on them. Scale. Same question I keep asking. Well, if somebody gets on the scale and they lose weight, what happens? They're happy, and so, oh, I've been good. I deserve a reward, right? I mean, that often leads to the overeating. But then the reverse is true. I get on the scale, the number's gone up, I'm disappointed, angry, sad, depressed, and it leads to food. The scale doesn't help. There's certain times that weighing is necessary. Your annual physical, for a medication dosage, for surgery. But weighing every day, like some of our clients do, or many times a day, or going to the doctor being weighed for a sore throat, it doesn't help people. Finally, this living in the present. So many people are putting off the things they want to do in life. If I were thin, I would. And it's a great workshop exercise with people. If I were thin, I would. I did a workshop once, and this woman said she loved to swim. She hasn't gone swimming in 30 years because she was too embarrassed to wear pants. That's painful. So helping our clients look at what are they putting off in life that are things that they can do now. A lot of times people are putting off exercise, which is ironic, right? I mean, so helping people find a way to exercise that's comfortable. Maybe it's not going to help, but where there's so much competition around weight. maybe it's doing something at home, or doing yoga, or finding something that fits their physical and emotional needs. Sometimes with the living in the present, it's things like I would be more confident, I would start to date. And I just want to say that a lot of times those have to do with deeper psychological issues that we're taught in this culture to put all kinds of things onto weight. And if you have a client like that who says, if I'm thinner, I'll have less problems with intimacy, and they lose weight, it's not going to get better just because they lost weight. It's really important they start to work on those issues now. And that's when you might want to be looking at a team, having to work with a therapist to work on the intimacy issues. But again, it helps them understand how they put other problems into their life to the weight. Otherwise, the weight loss becomes very scary. And I want to just comment on a couple more of the psychological issues that you'll come across as you're working with clients who are concerned about overeating and body image, so that you can identify when is it appropriate to make a referral to a therapist as well. So you ask clients, what kinds of feelings lead you to overeating. You'll get a whole list. I think when I'm angry, I become sad, I become lonely, bored, happy, and unknown. And then if you say, well, what does the eating do for you? You'll get things like it soothes me, it comforts me, it distracts me, and it numbs me. And it makes sense because, eating is the earliest way we're taken care of. I mean, a baby cries and she's soothed by the breast or the bottom. And so when somebody is reaching for food, they're trying to help themselves. It's ultimately the wrong response, but it's a good thing they want to help themselves. And that's a lot of the compassion of this approach. And I'll talk with my clients that, people turn to drugs, they turn to alcohol, they turn to gambling. I know food, that it should be food is very painful to bring in as upsetting. But in the scheme of things, there's a good reason we turn to food. But like ice cream, if you cut your knee and you rub ice cream on your knee, it's good you're trying to help yourself, but it's the wrong response. So we want to help our clients work their way out of it. So to your client, it says like, I'm angry and I eat. So, Jennifer has a bad day at work. She's angry at her boss because he keeps giving her too much. And she comes home and she finds herself and she eats. But it's not the anger that leads her to eat. It's that she was angry and she couldn't tolerate feeling angry. She may have been aware of her feeling, or it may not have been conscious, but she reaches for food. The minute she starts to reach for food, what does she start to say? Here I go again, I'm out of control, I'm eating, I'm going to get too fat, I better do something about it. I better go on diet. As if dieting will solve the real issue, is she was angry with her boss and couldn't manage that feeling. So when your clients are talking about wanting to lose weight, who are using food for emotional reasons, they have a calming issue as opposed to a weight issue. And we want to help our clients to understand that. I had one client who I've been working with, and she said something that surprised her. We were talking about how hard it is for her to tell people how she really feels. And from her family background, she's just really constricted. She's never had conversations with her husband about certain things that you would expect a husband and wife to talk about. And I was talking with her about that being a possibility in her life and what it would be like to be able to do that with friends and be authentic. And she said to me, if I could be authentic like that, I wouldn't care how my body was. And she was blown away that she said that. She hadn't realized that the concern about her weight was speaking for a different issue in her life. And that stuff is sometimes really hard to sort out. And so again, if you feel like you're working with somebody where there's more stuff going on, reach out to a therapist, consider a referral. There's so many resources out there. So of course, I put up my 2 books, Diet Survivors handbook I have outside if you're interested in a copy. Beyond a Shadow of Diet is for therapists, dietitians, people in the health profession looking for a way to work with health at every size, non-diet approach, full of case examples and research. There's wonderful blogs out there. There's actually a Health at Every Size blog. Again, I have this in the resources, but if you Google Health at Every Size files, different contributors write wonderful things. There's a woman named Reagan Chastain, last name, who writes Dances with Fat. She's actually an award-winning, very large ballroom dancer. And she's amazing and she's a beautiful writer. And so she really comments on just all the different concerns in our culture related to weight. There's one called Weightless. It's wonderful on body image. Great for you to look at and great resources for your client. And also, I have a newsletter. I'll pass around a sign-up sheet if you're interested. It's a quarterly newsletter that gives case examples, new lessons, and it's free. It comes out, we do one each season. Rebecca, Lisa, would you mind just handing out those? I'll forget otherwise. If you're interested, just please write clearly, because often I can't read people's script. So I just want to end by saying, using Mahatma Gandhi's words, we must be the change that we want to see in the world. Think of yourself as a pebble, and who you are, what you believe, what you say, matters. And I want to just emphasize, not just in your professional life. When you go out to dinner, are you, and if you're hungry for dessert, do you get some dessert? Or are you someone who says, oh no, I can't have that, it'll make me too fat? What are the attitudes, what are the words you use, both in your professional life and personal life? You're that pebble, creating those ripples to spread this peace that people can feel, both in their relationship with food and in their bodies. So thank you all for your attention.